Once upon a time, there was a poor woodcutter named Tom. He lived in a small wooden house near a beautiful forest. Every morning, before the sun came up, Tom woke up early. He washed his face, ate a small breakfast, and picked up his old axe. The axe was not shiny or new, it was old and had many scratches. But Tom loved it because it helped him earn money every day. Tom walked into the forest with a smile. He liked the sound of birds singing. He liked the fresh air and the tall, green trees. The forest was peaceful. Every day, Tom cut only the trees that were old or already dead. He never cut young trees because he wanted the forest to stay healthy. The animals in the forest were not afraid of him because he was kind. Tom worked hard from morning until evening. His hands became rough and his clothes were often dirty, but he never complained. At the end of each day, he carried the wood to the village and sold it. The money was not much, but it was enough to buy food and simple things for his home. Many people asked him, "Tom, why don't you cut more trees? You can make more money." Tom always smiled and answered, "Money is important, but nature is also important. If I take too much today, there will be nothing left tomorrow." Everyone respected him because he was honest and hard-working. Little did Tom know that one day, something unexpected would change his life forever. One morning, Tom walked deeper into the forest than usual. He found a very large tree beside a clear river. "This tree is old," he said. "It is time for it to become useful wood." Tom raised his axe and started cutting. He worked for a long time. Sweat ran down his face, but he kept going. Suddenly his hands became tired. As he lifted the axe one more time, it slipped from his hands. The axe flew through the air. It fell into the deep river. Tom quickly ran to the riverbank. He looked into the water, but the river was too deep. The water moved fast, and he could not see his axe. "Oh no!" Tom cried. He searched along the river for hours. He looked under rocks and near the trees, but he could not find it. Without his axe, Tom could not work. Without work, he could not earn money. Tom sat beside the river and felt very sad. He whispered, "My axe is old, but it is everything I have." Tears slowly rolled down his face as he looked at the flowing water. As Tom sat quietly by the river, something amazing happened. The water began to sparkle. A bright light rose from the river. Then a beautiful fairy appeared. She wore a shining white dress, and her long hair sparkled like silver. The fairy smiled kindly. "Why are you crying?" she asked. Tom stood up politely. "My axe fell into the river," he answered. "It is the only tool I have." The fairy looked into his eyes. "I will help you," she said. She slowly disappeared beneath the water. A few moments later, she came back holding a beautiful golden axe. The axe shined brightly in the sunlight. "Is this your axe?" she asked. Tom looked at the golden axe. It was the most beautiful axe he had ever seen. But he shook his head. "No," he said honestly, "that is not my axe." The fairy smiled gently. "You are an honest man," she said. Then she disappeared into the river once again. Tom waited quietly beside the river. He did not know what would happen next. A few moments later, the fairy came back. This time, she was holding a beautiful silver axe. The silver axe shined softly under the morning sun. The handle was smooth and the blade looked very sharp. The fairy smiled. "Is this your axe?" she asked kindly. Tom looked at it carefully. It was beautiful. It looked much better than his old axe. For a moment he imagined how much money he could get if he sold it. But Tom quickly shook his head. "No," he answered, "this is not my axe either." The fairy looked pleased. "You are telling the truth again," she said. Tom smiled politely. "I cannot take something that does not belong to me." The fairy nodded. Very few people would make the same choice. Then she disappeared into the river one more time. Tom waited patiently. He hoped she could still find his old axe. Even if it was old and worn, it was special to him. It had helped him work for many years. Tom stood quietly by the river, watching the water move gently. Soon, the fairy returned again. This time, she was holding an old axe with a wooden handle and a scratched metal blade. Tom's eyes became wide with happiness. "My axe!" he shouted happily. "Yes, that is my axe." He reached out carefully and took it into his hands. He smiled from ear to ear. He was happier to see his old axe than he had been to see the gold or silver ones. The fairy watched him with a warm smile. She knew she had found a truly honest man. The fairy smiled brightly. "Tom," she said, "you have been honest from the beginning. You did not lie to become rich. You chose the truth, even when no one could stop you." Tom bowed politely. "My parents taught me that honesty is more valuable than gold." The fairy's smile became even bigger. "As a reward," she said, "you may keep all 3 axes." Tom could not believe his ears. "All 3?" he asked in surprise. "Yes," said the fairy, "the golden axe, the silver axe, and your own old axe." Tom's hand shook as he accepted them. He thanked the fairy again and again. "I will never forget your kindness," he said. The fairy nodded. "Remember, true riches come from a good heart." Then she slowly disappeared into the sparkling river. Tom carefully carried the 3 axes back to his home. The next morning he sold only the golden and silver axes to an honest merchant. The money was enough to repair his little house. He bought better clothes. He had enough food for many months, but he did not stop working. Every morning he still carried his old axe into the forest. People in the village were surprised. "You are rich now," they said. "Why do you still work?" Tom smiled. "Work keeps my hands strong and my heart thankful." The villagers admired him even more. Not far from Tom's house lived another woodcutter. His name was Jack. Jack heard the story about the fairy and the 3 axes. His eyes became full of excitement. If Tom became rich so easily, he thought, I can do the same. But Jack was very different from Tom. He cared only about money. The next morning, Jack took his axe and walked to the same river. He looked around, no one was watching. Then he threw his axe into the water on purpose. After that, he sat down and pretended to cry. "Oh, my poor axe," he shouted loudly. "I have lost everything." Soon the water began to shine. The fairy appeared once again. She asked kindly, "Why are you crying?" Jack pointed at the river. "My axe fell into the water." He lied. "Please help me." The fairy looked at him quietly. Then she disappeared beneath the water. The fairy returned holding the same beautiful golden axe. She asked, "Is this your axe?" Jack's eyes became very big. He had never seen so much gold before. Without thinking, he shouted, "Yes, yes, that's my axe." The fairy's smile disappeared. She knew he was lying. "This is not your axe," she said calmly. "You are not telling the truth." Jack became nervous. I... Before he could finish speaking, the fairy disappeared. She did not return with the silver axe. She did not return with Jack's old axe either. Jack waited. He waited for many hours. But the fairy never came back. Now he had no axe at all. He walked home sadly. He had lost the only tool he owned because of his greed. The villagers soon heard what had happened. Many people shook their heads. One old man said, "When people choose greed over honesty, they often lose more than they hope to gain." Jack finally understood his mistake, but it was too late. The story spread from one village to another. People talked about Tom's honesty everywhere. Parents told the story to their children. Teachers shared it in school. Everyone remembered the lesson. One day, Jack visited Tom. "I was wrong," Jack admitted. "I wanted easy money." Tom smiled kindly. "Everyone makes mistakes. The important thing is to learn from them." Jack lowered his head. "I wish I had been honest." Tom placed a hand on his shoulder. "It is never too late to become a better person." From that day, Jack worked harder. He saved enough money to buy a new axe. This time, he earned everything honestly. Slowly, people began to trust him again. It took time, but good actions slowly changed his life. Years passed. Tom became one of the most respected people in the village. He never forgot the lesson the fairy had taught him. Whenever someone needed help, Tom was there. He helped old people carry firewood. He repaired broken fences for free. He shared food with families who had little to eat. Many young woodcutters came to learn from him. Tom always taught them two important things: take care of the forest, and always tell the truth. The young workers listened carefully. Because of Tom, the forest remained beautiful for many years. The trees continued to grow, the birds continued to sing, the river stayed clean and clear. The village became happier because people respected nature and trusted one another. Tom knew that true happiness did not come from gold. It came from living with honesty, kindness, and gratitude. One peaceful evening, Tom sat outside his little house. The sun slowly disappeared behind the hills. The sky turned orange, pink, and purple. Tom looked at his old axe. It was still the tool he loved the most. It reminded him of the day that changed his life forever. He smiled quietly. The fairy's words stayed in his heart. True riches come from a good heart. Tom realized that the greatest reward was not the gold. It was the chance to prove that honesty matters. People may become rich with money, but they become truly valuable through good character. Years later, children still listened to the story of the honest woodcutter. They remembered that telling the truth is not always easy. Sometimes honesty seems to cost us something, but in the end, honesty brings trust. Trust brings respect, and respect brings a happy life. So whenever you face a difficult choice, remember Tom and his old axe. Choose honesty over greed. Choose kindness over selfishness. Choose patience over shortcuts. Because a good heart is the greatest treasure anyone can have. Thank you for listening to The Woodcutter and His Axe. If this story made you smile or taught you something new, please support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and sharing it with someone who loves inspiring stories. Leave a comment below and tell us, would you choose honesty like Tom? Until next time, keep reading, keep learning, and always choose kindness. Goodbye, and see you in the next story.